I cannot hear Suad. Is that how I pronounce your name? I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, but I cannot hear you.
That may be because she is already in the Somali room.
Got it. Okay. But let me see if I can go to the Somali room and see if I can hear you. Hold on, let me try it.
Okay, just confirming that you can hear Suad if you join the Somali interpretation room.
Okay. Hello, Suad. Oh, good. I can hear you. Great. Well, we're checking the interpretation. It's working. Oh, great. Perfect. Okay, stay here. Do you have any questions that I can answer for you before we get started? Okay. Okay, great. Um, so, if anybody has a question in your room, feel free to, I'm not quite sure how, I think you can speak directly to the main room. Can you do that? Or can you type in the chat? Okay. Okay. You can also just send it chat if that's easiest. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. And thank you for joining us. We're so glad to have you here. Okay. I'm going to switch back over now. Okay. Thank you for confirming that that was working. And our Spanish interpreter will join at 1:15 and we can test that out then. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, I'm here.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to pause for a moment and go off camera. If anybody, I'll let you know when I'm back. I'm also going to use the restroom and grab some water.
I have a Susan Lee in the waiting room. Can anyone confirm whether or not she's part of the team?
She's not.
Okay, I'll leave her in there.
Yeah, thank you. The other person that would be joining us that's part of the team is Leah. And then I think everybody else is on the run of show. So everyone's name should be there.
Sounds good. Thanks, Kai.
Yes, thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Thank you for joining us, Bhavini.
I'm getting ready.
Okay. Do you have any questions or need anything?
Not really. I mean, the only thing is if I'm going out of track or something, just stop me or message me or something.
Sounds good. Just speak from your heart, Bhavini. That's really what we're hoping for, is for you to
Yep.
share your authentic reflections.
Yeah. I'll do my best for sure.
Okay. I'm going to go grab some water and I'll be back in a moment.
Yeah.
Hi, Lois. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, you are welcome.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can hear me clearly.
Yes, I can. So I was just confirming that we can hear you, and I can see you. Hello.
Hello, hello.
And you can see me, I hope.
Yes,
Great.
I can.
Thank you for joining us early. We are going to start letting people in about 5 minutes to 1:30. So we're just hanging out for a few minutes, making sure everybody has their tech set up.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. And hi,
All right.
Sasha. I see that you're here for Spanish interpretation. Thank you. Hello. Okay, let me change channels and confirm. Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Do you have any questions before we get started?
How much time do
That's a
you
good
want us?
question. No, I don't think we I'm not sure. Well, what do you recommend? We just spoke with Suwad and she was saying that she would type in the chat.
Kai, how much time do you want us to spend answering the questions?
Oh. Hold on just a second, Lois. I'm in the Spanish channel and
Okay.
I'm gonna just switch back over in just a moment.
Oh, sorry about that.
No worries. Exactly. Mhm. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. Got it. Okay. We will be instructing everybody to pick a language. So English speakers will be in the English station. And then we are suggesting that people attempt to write their questions out. So if somebody is asking a question in Spanish, you will switch over to the English. Is that what you're suggesting? Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. Yep. Mhm. Yeah. Okay. And then you would switch back over to Spanish. Okay. Got it. That makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Okay. Okay, Lois, I'm back into the English channel.
Oh, no worries. I just wanted to know how much time do you want us to spend answering the questions that you shared with us?
That's a good question. We have kind of 30 minutes. Let me just look at these questions. So I think if you, I would really love to have you and Bhavini be able to have time to share. What do you think about 5 minutes to reflect on those two questions?
Are you saying 5 minutes total versus
5 minutes each.
share?
5
Each.
minutes each.
Well, we can work on it.
Yeah,
and
I
if,
don't,
if you
I
don't
don't
go the
know if
whole
we-
time, no worries.
okay. I was going to say, I don't think we'll need that much time.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I just don't want to cut you off if you're on a roll. So I am open to giving you both 5 minutes for those those two opening questions, but definitely if you don't fill it, we will continue in the conversation and then invite you back in towards the end of the panel as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And then for everybody on the call so far, if you haven't gone down to the bottom of the screen, you'll see that there's a button for interpretation. You'll want to be in the English channel. It's in between show captions and meeting info if you're not familiar with it.
Or it can be 3 dots, which what I see.
Correct. Yeah. 3 dots. Thank you. And I'll make sure that I share that. Thank you.
Kai, the second slide of this deck does have those instructions. I can keep it here or I can advance it one more. I don't know what would be better if to like prompt people as they come in. I'll
Yeah.
show briefly what this slide looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, you can keep it on until we start. And then when we start, we'll go back just to like the opening slide.
Sure, that
Great.
works for me. And then just to confirm, when I get to the, because I'm driving the slides, when I get to the slide that introduces the panel, I'll keep it up until everyone's introduced and then I'll take it off. Does that sound okay? Or should I just take it off immediately?
And you're suggesting you would take it off, and so you would just be able to see our faces talking, right?
Right. I assume that
Yeah.
we don't want that slide up for the whole.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
And Sophia, are you able during that panel part to be, I think in the past, we can, what is this? Pin the speakers, and then everybody else whose camera is off falls away. Is that correct?
Yeah, I can pin the speakers, and I believe there's also a setting to hide folks without their camera on, so I can look in the background and figure out how to turn that on if possible.
Thank you.
Kai, one other question. Is it okay for us to go off screen or do you want us to stay on the whole time while the panel's happening?
You can go off screen if you like. Yeah, whatever you feel comfortable with works for me.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
So just testing this setting, are y'all currently able to see the folks who don't have their video on your side?
Yes.
Mhm.
I think that this setting is only for each individual's view then. Like I think I can turn video out, like people without their video on off on my end, but I don't think I can turn it off for everyone.
Okay.
But I can definitely pin people while they're speaking during the panel.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, Justin, or Sophia, I don't know who can see if there are people waiting.
I- There are 4 people waiting.
We can wait a few more minutes and then we can start to let people in. It would be great if somehow, I mean, I think I always anticipate that it will take people a little bit longer, but maybe somehow giving us kind of a sign that is like, you think we should begin the presentation.
You mean like between starting to let people in and
Yeah, just like if it feels like people just keep joining, I will maybe start around closer to like 1:35 if it feels like people are joining rapidly.
okay. Yeah, I can send a private message to you, Kai,
Great.
if it's like people are still joining at 1:30.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want me to start letting folks in or not quite yet?
Yeah. Is everyone ready? Okay, yeah, I'm ready.
Do we need to sign in or no?
Hello, no, we don't need you to sign in. If you are choosing to do interpretation, please select, actually everybody needs to select a language. We are providing interpretation. If there are, at the bottom of your screen, you would be able to see a button to be able to pick the English, Spanish, or Somali.
Hello.
Hello, thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us. We will get started in a few moments. In the meantime, please go ahead and select a language that you want to listen in today. We have English, Spanish, and Somali available. On the bottom of your screen, you should see a button where you can pick. It looks as it is on the screen here. It says interpretation, or it may be 3 dots. And please let us know if you're having any trouble. Thank you all for joining us today. I think we're just going to wait 1 more minute as people continue to join. And I will have Justin, you go ahead and go back to the first slide. Hey, thank you all for being here today. We are going to get started with our presentation. And I see some questions in the chat. You do not need to sign in today with the STARS ID. Thank you for asking. We will be recording this. If you do not want your video recorded, please feel free to stay off camera. Otherwise, I'm going to start our presentation. And my name is Kalaya Domingo. I am the Child Care Best Starts, part of the Child Care Best Starts team, and I am the program manager for our Child Care Wage Boost pilot. I see a familiar face. I see you, Elvia. So good to see you. Next slide, please. Today, we are going to be providing language interpretation. Everybody on the call will join a language. Please choose between English, Spanish, or Somali. The button is at the bottom of the Zoom screen. It says interpretation, or it may also look like 3 dots. As we're offering interpretation, sorry, go back, Justin. I'll just ask that if you are speaking, the reminder to the presenters to slow down in our speaking so the interpreters can keep up with us. And if there are any questions, please use the chat for your questions, or if there are comments as well. Okay, next slide, Justin. So before we get started, I'd actually like to start with a land acknowledgement. Today, I am joining from Seattle, Washington, and I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional land of the people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. I'd also like to acknowledge a labor acknowledgement. This is adapted from the Seattle Colleges, and I want us to pause to recognize and acknowledge the labor upon which our country, state, and institutions are built. We remember that our country is built on the labor of enslaved people who were kidnapped and brought to the US from the African continent, and recognize the continued contribution of the survivors. We also acknowledge all immigrant labor, including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, forced, and undocumented people who contribute to the building of the country and continue to serve within our labor force. We acknowledge all unpaid caregiving roles. To the people who contributed this immeasurable work and their descendants, we acknowledge their mark on this space in which we gather today. And it is our collective responsibility to critically interrogate these histories, to repair harm, and to honor, protect, and sustain this land. I acknowledge this because it is the current experiences of the inequitable wages within our childcare workforce that are directly related to these legacies and the ways that these legacies still undermine and devalue the important work of caregiving professions, including our early learning workforce. Thank you for so many early learning providers that are here with us today. We hold gratitude for the work that you do. So today we are going to be starting with just a grounding on the Best Starts for Kids initiative, as well as our pilot. We're going to have a presentation from our team from Urban Institute on a survey that they held earlier this year, gathering information about our King County childcare workforce. And then we're going to open it up to a panel conversation to hear from some early learning providers and some of our partners that work on the pilot. We will hopefully have a little bit of time for questions and answers. Next slide. Best Starts for Kids is a community-driven initiative, and we are grateful for our community that invests in our work here in King County to ensure that we are building programs and policies and experiences for all children and families to reach a happy, healthy, and thriving adulthood. This is funded by our voters and supported by our voters. And our last levy was voted on in 2021 with overwhelming support of more than 62% of the vote. Next slide. Our pilot is, oops, is that the right slide? Sorry, I guess I'm jumping ahead. I took some slides out, sorry. Our pilot is a new component of our Best Starts for Kids levy. This pilot is investing in our childcare workforce, and we are currently investing in almost 1,000 workers, and we are providing direct payments to those workers and increasing their pay by $8,320 for each full-time worker and $4,160 for part-time workers. These participants represent childcare facilities across King County in all of our districts and are representative of all types of licensed facilities, including childcare centers, family home, and school-age care. Next slide. So currently, we have reached the number of workers in our most recent payment was 854 workers, and we distributed so far $4.6 million. We are actively distributing dollars right now, actually, in our most recent payment. So this number will continue to grow. As part of this application, we reached over 1,000 workers to contribute to the survey that you're going to hear about today. And we also have information about our workers that are enrolled in our pilot. So you can learn more about those facilities and those workers. Our communications team is going to be putting information into the chat, and I'll also be sending that out in an email after our presentation today. Next slide.
Hi everyone, this is Lauren Dinsmore, pronouns are she, her. I work alongside Kalia An at King County Best Starts for Kids. I am the evaluator for the child care strategy. So I work closely with the Wage Boost Pilot and the Best Starts for Kids subsidy. I have really been the lead on the research arm of the Wage Boost Pilot for the last few years. I work closely with all of our research partners to shape what we want to learn about the Wage Boost Pilot and how we go about learning that. So we have partnered with Urban Institute and Cardia Services to shape a mixed methods research plan that runs alongside the Wage Boost Pilot. And really, our intention for this research is to learn about public investment in the childcare workforce through the Wage Boost, which means we really want to learn about how the Wage Boost impacts the experience of our workers, their financial well-being, their health, their stress, their workplace conditions, and their relationships with families and kids. So we've really been leaning on both the workers in the pilot and those who weren't selected for the pilot, so we can learn about the workforce experiences during this time period in King County. So we're really hoping to learn from the workforce as a whole. And ultimately, those learnings support having tools and research products for you all in the workforce to take into your future advocacy work, to take into your learnings around informing future childcare policy, future childcare programs that support the sector. And lastly, our research is really rooted in the workforce and your lived experiences. So at every step of our research, we've worked closely with childcare workers to learn what outcomes and learnings are important for you all to know about, how we can be inclusive of the diversity of experience that our workforce has, and really support what your hopes are for the sector. So this is the first of several community presentations we will have to share back these learnings with you all as we continue this research and really keep co-designing with you all in mind. So with that said, I'm going to introduce our research team at Urban Institute who will be presenting these first survey results with you all. So we have 3 of our researchers here. First is Justin Dorimal. His pronouns are he, him. He's a senior research associate at Urban Institute and leads the evaluation of the Best Starts for Kids Wage Boost pilot. His research addresses childcare affordability and the compensation of the childcare workforce. We also have Ellie Miles, a senior research associate at Urban Institute. She co-leads the evaluation of the Best Starts for Kids Wage Boost pilot, and her research focuses on programs and services that support caregiver, child, relational well-being, and mental health. And then last, we have Eve Mefford, a research associate at Urban, who also supports our evaluation survey. Her research focuses on public benefits and early childhood workforce well-being and compensation. Thank you all, and I will hand it over to our research team.
All right, thank you, Lauren, and thank you everyone for joining us today. And so on behalf of the team, I wanted to share how excited we all are to have the opportunity to share our early findings here with everyone today. And so what we'll talk about is a snapshot of the workforce before the pilot. And so this was before the pilot wage boosts began. But as Lauren and Kai shared, what we're hoping is in the coming years, we will continue to have this space to share new findings, build upon our work, and hear from you all on sort of what is emerging from these results and what we can do about them. And so before digging into the survey and what we found, I want to begin by sharing some background information about the project and the survey, some of which Lauren and Kai shared, but just wanted to put it on the screen so we can see it again. So the Best Starts for Kids childcare worker wage boost pilot represents a significant public investment toward improving the childcare sector through addressing low wages that those in the field have long received. And so a lot of the things we are interested in here and the motivations for the investment involve improving workers' experience of stress, financial well-being and health, improving workplace conditions, and supporting the continuity of care for children and families. Our goal here is to learn alongside the pilot, and as Lauren shared, it's intentionally designed so that we can equip change makers in the field with the tools to design and advocate for investments and policy reforms in the future.
Thank you, Justin. I just want to interject. We have a request from Sasha to please speak a little bit slower. Thank you.
Yes, I saw that. Thank you. So on our next slide, so as Lauren shared, we are working with King County to establish the impact of increased wages on childcare providers, sites, and the communities. And so in our approach, we seek to elevate provider voice, and we're also striving to provide relevant and timely insights. And so we can provide the link in the chat, if it's already there, in fact, where you can learn more about our project and keep up with our findings. So today we'll talk primarily about one survey at which is at the far left, which we conducted earlier this year. But I wanted to show the range of activities we're doing in order to learn about the experience of providers in the pilot. And so by the end of the project, we will have surveys from 3 different time points that can help track changes in workforce conditions and experiences, a lot of which we'll show today. We're also preparing for focus groups with childcare providers to dig deeper into themes that emerge in the surveys and provide the space for providers to elaborate on their experience and perspectives. Finally, interviews and analysis of implementation data will help us to document how the pilot was carried out with an eye toward future planning and future improvement. We're doing these activities in close collaboration with pilot partners, and we are also engaged with the work group of childcare providers who are advising on the materials and interpretation of the analysis. Like I shared at the beginning, we're focused today on the very first survey, which was conducted before workers or their employers were notified about whether they might participate in the pilot. Our goal was to describe the conditions of the workforce before King County's investment in wages and to really demonstrate the need for that investment. We sought to identify the assets of the workforce, the needs and challenges they face, and existing and needed supports. Our goal then is to use follow-up surveys to track progress against these initial findings. If you want to learn more about the full set of findings, the links are available in the chat, and we'll also cover them today. You'll see much about these topics in the coming slides, but just to give you a preview, our survey asked questions related to a number of different topics. We asked respondents to describe aspects of their job, including their wages, benefits, their views of the workplace, and how they feel about their job. We also asked them a number of questions that get at different dimensions of well-being, including financial stress, symptoms of depression, stress and thriving, social supports, and physical health, among others. Increased wages from the pilot could affect some of these directly and some of these indirectly. And our goal today is just to document what these looked like for childcare workers before the wage boost pilot. But we look forward to describing these outcomes as a result of the pilot at a later time. I'd like to then invite my colleague Eve to present findings from here.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much. I'll start by briefly describing the backgrounds and characteristics of the people who took our survey. If you go to the next slide. We received over 1,000 responses from childcare professionals. Most were women, over half had dependents, and the average age was 42. On average, they'd been in the field for 12 years and at their program for 7. Next slide, please. The largest group of respondents, 37%, had a bachelor's degree or higher, and a third were currently taking coursework towards another degree or credential. Some also had credentials from other countries that they brought. The majority spoke English at work, but there's also a great diversity of different languages represented here, including Spanish, American Sign Language, Somali, Mandarin, and Arabic. 3/4 didn't receive any public benefits, though some did receive benefits, such as Apple Health and SNAP. 5% of all respondents and 8% of respondents with dependent children receive child care subsidies. Next slide, please. We had representation from all 4 King County regions, with most responses coming from Seattle at 45%. We heard from a good number of centers and homes, and from a wide range of childcare roles. Our sample does overrepresent directors, owners, and operators because of the way we reached participants. We reached out to those directors and owners first when they applied for the pilot. Next slide, please. We also heard from folks representing a wide range of races and ethnicities, including 43% white, 24% Black, 19% Latinx, and 17% Asian. You can see ethnicity and nationality breakdowns in the callout boxes on the right. There's lots of diversity within each of those racial and ethnic groups. If you go to the next slide. Next, I'll talk about childcare professionals' wages and benefits. As this one childcare lead teacher said, "I'd love for others to be seen and paid as professionals so that they too may see early childhood education as a career choice." Next slide. All right, so the living wage is one measure of how much a person has to make to meet minimum standards of living in their community. As you can see, only directors made average hourly wages that were at or above a living wage for King County for one adult with no children. That's $30.82 an hour. No roles had average hourly wages at or above a living wage for one adult and one child, which would be $56.33. And those 2 living wage amounts are represented by the black lines on this chart. If you go to the next slide, you can see, back one, thank you. You can see that average net income for home-based owners and operators was particularly low. While average annual income was around $75,000, expenses put their net income around $16,000 a year. Next slide, please. Some benefits were offered more commonly than others, with paid holidays and time off offered most commonly, and retirement, paid family leave, and transportation offered the least. If you advance one, or all three, if you don't mind. 9% were offered no benefits at all in their job. 80% had health insurance from any source, which means that 20% were uninsured. Of those who were offered a child care benefit, 42% said that they used it. And we heard from those folks that it was very valuable. Next slide, please. Childcare professionals' wages really matter because they and their families rely on those wages. 55% said their childcare wages made up all or almost all of their household income. And 75% said they made up at least half. If you go to the next slide. The last topic I'll discuss is work experiences. We heard from so many early childhood professionals about what brought them and keeps them in the field. As this person says, watching children learn, grow, and develop confidence is incredibly rewarding. The relationships I build with families and the sense of purpose I feel every day keep me motivated and committed to this field. Next slide, please. Most childcare professionals reported positive work environments, which is wonderful. They knew who to ask for help in the classroom, were confident in their partnerships with families, felt supported by leadership and coworkers, and enjoyed their jobs. They also often felt a sense of personal accomplishment at work. These are really wonderful strengths, and we're really happy to see this from the King County early childhood workforce. They also, if you go to the next slide, they also felt prepared to support the needs and development of the children they worked with, particularly children at the ages and stages they worked with, children from diverse cultures, and children experiencing poverty. These are really wonderful strengths that the workforce brings and speaks to the quality that they provide for so many children with different needs. The areas where childcare professionals felt least prepared or less prepared included supporting children with special health needs, developmental delays, and trauma. This speaks to areas that additional support could further help childcare professionals feel confident in their work and in providing quality care, even to children with some of these more challenging needs. Child care professionals with more than 10 years experience felt better prepared to support children with different needs than those with 0 to 5 years experience. This emphasizes the importance of work experience in addition to training and education in the early childhood field, and again speaks to the wealth of experience and expertise that early childhood professionals bring. Now I'll pass it to Ellie for the next sections.
Thank you. I'm going to begin with what we learned about job satisfaction and childcare workers' intentions to leave the childcare field or their jobs. I want to start with one powerful quote that a childcare program supervisor shared. They shared, "I'm now at a crossroads where I have to choose between following my calling or restarting in another field that would allow me to be able to have a child, afford car repairs, housing, and my own health." So on the next slide, we started, like I mentioned, with asking about job satisfaction. And we see this as one of the big strengths that we saw in the workforce. Looking at the left-hand side, you can see that overall, the majority of the workforce, about 3 in 4, described overall being satisfied or very satisfied with their jobs. And if you look on the right-hand side where we have individual questions listed out, you can see that the rates are really high in relation to relationships that childcare workers have with families, that they have with their supervisors, and their feelings about the job overall. As you go down the list, you can see that the lowest reported satisfaction is with pay and paid planning time and benefits, where just half the sample reported feeling satisfied or very satisfied. Next slide. Thanks. So we asked participants, you can actually advance again. Thank you. We asked participants where they thought they would be a year from now, and most of the sample, about 84%, said that they would probably be in the same job. Only 4% stated that they planned to leave the childcare field. We also asked workers whether they looked or considered looking for a new job in the last 3 months. About 1 out of 4 workers had at least thought about it or had looked. And interestingly, when childcare workers reported that they had more satisfaction with their jobs and when they felt less stressed, they were less likely to have looked or considered looking for a new job. So we know that job satisfaction is very important for childcare workers wanting to stay in their roles. Next slide. For the 1 in 4 who looked or thought about looking for a different job, we asked them what the top reasons were, what really drove them to look for something else. So we looked at really what were the most commonly listed items out of a long list, and we broke it out by different roles. So we looked at directors, assistant directors, lead teachers, and assistant teachers. And a couple interesting things emerged. First of all, the top 2 reasons were the same across all roles. Consistently, it was higher pay and better benefits that drove people to look for other jobs. The third reason, however, varied based on the role, and it varied in ways that were quite understandable, we think. So for example, directors were often looking because they wanted more work-life balance. Assistant directors were often looking because they wanted more leadership opportunities. Lead teachers were often looking because they wanted to utilize recent degrees or credentials or trainings they completed. And assistant teachers were often looking because they wanted a change in hours or a more predictable schedule. Next slide. So in the next section, we want to share some learnings about the financial hardships and stressors that we heard about in the survey. As one childcare assistant director shared, I don't see a future in childcare where I can achieve the level of financial stability that I would feel comfortable with. I don't want to live in poverty forever. Next slide. So let's start here with looking at the graph on the left. We asked 2 questions. First, whether participants were unable to afford food and whether they were unable to afford what they need each month. And the dark blue part of the bar shows those strongly agreeing, ranging down to the light blue, which indicates those that strongly disagreed with that statement. Our data shows in the 2 darkest shades of blue that 19% agreed or strongly agreed they have difficulty paying for food, and 44% agreed or strongly agreed that they have trouble affording what they need each month. We then collapsed across those 2 questions to see how commonly workers in different roles reported agreeing or strongly agreeing with either of those questions. And we see that 50% overall agreed with at least one of the statements. The group with the highest agreement were those in administrative, food, maintenance, or transportation roles, but we do want to note that that was just 2% of our sample. Following that, it was our assistant directors, and the lowest was our directors, although that was still a pretty high number at 43%. We also asked providers about specific needs and costs and whether they could afford them. We saw that the majority struggled with debt, and especially with educational debt. We also saw that 43% could not afford childcare for their own children, which actually outpaces national estimates of childcare workers that show that about 20% can't afford childcare. So we have a high rate in our sample that was indicating they struggle to afford that cost. And these affordability difficulties extended down the line. Even at the lowest, 1 in 5 reported they couldn't afford transportation costs, and nearly 1 in 4 couldn't afford housing. We also show, looking to the right, that our participants identifying as Black, Indigenous, Latinx, or people of color, as well as workers who speak a primary language other than English, were much more likely than white and English-speaking providers to report that they couldn't afford 5 or more out of the listed expenses on the left-hand side. So we know from this data that financial hardship is not equally distributed in the workforce that responded to our survey. Okay, next slide. Lastly here, we asked about financial stress. So these questions key in on worry about finances and its impact on how workers are sleeping, arguments they may be having about money in the home, and so on. We looked at an overall average score, and based on our dark and medium blue responses, we see that 29% are experiencing moderate to high financial stress regularly. You can get a sense of which individual items on this bar chart with the dark blue and medium blue indicate areas of stress that are most prevalent. Most commonly, workers reported that they worried about running out of money between paychecks. So 41% of the time, they have that concern. And 36% were relying on credit, and 37% reported they're not sleeping well because of financial worry. We also learned, unsurprisingly, that workers with larger household size and whose households rely on more of their income from their jobs in childcare reported higher levels of financial stress. And financial stress seemed to impact everyone in our sample pretty equally. There were not differences in financial stress by the role or by the kind of care setting that workers were in. Next slide. Looking at holistic well-being, we also asked participants questions using brief screeners that asked about symptoms of depression and symptoms of stress, so we could get at the emotional health of the workforce. The importance of mental health is also highlighted through this quote, where an assistant director aligned childcare workers with essential workers with high levels of responsibility, and notes how important the job is, both for parents to work, but also in developing the next generation. Next slide. So we looked at cutoffs on those screeners to indicate when childcare workers were experiencing elevated symptoms of depression. And we also looked at rates of elevated perceived stress, which really related to how often workers felt overwhelmed or felt like difficulties were piling up so high they could not overcome them. Our data shows that 21% of the sample, on average, had elevated symptoms of depression, with assistant teachers having the highest levels and directors and owners having the lowest levels at 15%. Our data shows that 50% have elevated stress, with the highest rates among assistant directors and somewhat lower rates among directors and owners, although they're all pretty high. Next slide. We also looked at how having higher depression symptoms was related to childcare worker characteristics. There are two patterns we want to bring your attention to here. One, we found that the younger workforce identified more symptoms of depression than older workers. So 36% among those that were ages 30 and younger versus 12% among those 51 and above reported elevated depression symptoms. We also found that as education rose, generally rates of depression rose as well. From a low of 15%, for those that had completed high school to 24 and 23% among those with a bachelor's degree or higher. And relating to some of our earlier learnings we've already shared, we saw that when workers had more financial stress and more stress in general, they were more likely to report having higher symptoms of depression. Next slide. So we also wanted to know about childcare workers' access to social supports because we know that they are really critical for supporting well-being. As one assistant teacher noted, a livable wage will support myself and my loved ones to do more self-care so I can show up for my kids more. We asked participants about how often they could participate in self-care, community, cultural, or spiritual activities, or quality time with friends and family. The bar chart on the left shows you the percentage of childcare workers who said that they fairly often or very often could participate in those activities. And you can see that across each of them, less than half of the sample reported that they could often or fairly often do these things. Less than a third reported that they have quality time with friends and family. We also found that participants who spoke a primary language other than English were less likely to report having time to do any of these activities on a regular basis than English speakers were. Okay, and then next we wanted to see whether childcare workers' symptoms of depression might depend on their access to social supports. So we broke down how often participants indicated that they could participate in self-care, spiritual, cultural, community activities, or quality time with friends and family, ranging from very often at the top of the bar chart to never or almost never at the bottom. And we looked at the rates of elevated depression depending on this average frequency with which they could participate in those activities. And the difference we think is really stark. Among those who very often participate in those activities, elevated depression only happened in 8% of those childcare workers, compared to 50% of childcare workers who said they never or almost never participated in those activities. Next slide. And lastly, we wanted to ask about physical health as another important piece of holistic well-being for the childcare workforce. As one assistant teacher noted, I could invest more time into my health and mental health because of the wage boost. There are many things I need taken care of, but I have no spare income to afford further health costs. So we asked about perceived overall health, starting with this bar chart on the left. You can see that the majority of participants said that they were in good or very good health, so that's really excellent. We were also interested, however, in those reporting poor or fair health. And we found that these workers also had higher stress. These are the same workers who also said they're not sleeping as well and didn't report thriving as often as workers in better health. Looking at the pie chart on the right, we also asked whether workers had problems with their work or daily activities because of their physical health. And among those with fair or poor health, nearly 3 out of 4 said that they did experience negative impacts on their functioning or their work because of their health. Next slide. We also asked how childcare workers were sleeping, and the majority, 3 out of 4, said that they sleep fairly or very well. Although that also means that about 1 in 4 were not sleeping so well. On average, childcare workers say they get about 6.5 hours of sleep every night. And we also learned that sleep was better when overall physical health was better, when depression and stress were lower, and also interestingly, when childcare workers were newer in the field, so when they had fewer years of experience. Next slide. Lastly, we wanted to understand how frequently workers were showing up to work while sick or injured, especially knowing that up to 20% of the childcare workers in our sample had no form of health insurance. We found that in the last 3 months, 41% of the sample reported that they did show up to work while they were sick or while they were injured. Most commonly, these individuals reported that they showed up because there was no one to cover for them at work, and sometimes it was because of a lack of sick leave or because time off was discouraged. Okay, so just very quickly to summarize and wrap up some of our key points, we want to point out that there's a variety of strengths and challenges that we uncovered in this first set of learnings. We see a strong sense of accomplishment in the work, really positive perceptions of the workplace and the job in general, and a high desire to stay in the field. Most also report good health and good sleep. On the other hand, there are definite areas of struggle that this survey highlighted. And we think it's important to draw attention to that, especially challenges with income and lack of access to benefits. And as a downstream result, high levels of financial insecurity and financial stress. We also see impacts on mental health, particularly depression and perceived stress. We see limited time for social connections that we know are very important, and a need to work even when individuals are sick or injured. And finally, as one childcare assistant teacher noted, a wage boost could help me invest time into myself, giving me the opportunity to pursue my passions. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kai.
Thank you so much, Ellie, and to the research team for doing this work. We believe with this evidence, we will help to inform future change within the childcare sector. We also believe that there's important learnings that we can use right now. On our call today, we have a representation of childcare workers, centers, directors. We also have people that are working alongside the childcare sector in programs, in policy, decision makers. And so we want this data to be useful now and moving forward. I'm going to invite in our panelists today to share with us some reflections from what we've heard from this survey. I'm really excited to have two early learning leaders join us. They're also part of our work group that helps to inform the research design and give context to the research findings. I'm going to introduce them one by one. We have Bhavini Patel, who is an owner of a family home childcare. She is a dedicated small business entrepreneur and has been working and serving the community for over a decade. In addition to her work with children and families, Bhavini is a mentor and a STARS approved trainer who supports other childcare educators in their profession. Bhavini is an active member of both the National Association for Family Childcare and the Washington Family Childcare Association, where she continues to advocate for quality standards and professional excellence in the field. Next, I want to introduce Lois Martin, Director of Community Day Center for Children. Lois Martin has been an early learning leader and advocate for over 30 years. Lois is the director of the Community Day Center for Children in Seattle's Central District, a school founded by her mother in 1963. She continues in her legacy of creating a safe haven for children founded on the ideals of social justice and the belief that all children deserve to have equitable access to quality learning. Lois sits on numerous work groups and boards to inform the childcare sector in King County and Washington State. She's a local leader, thought partner, and mentor to many of us working directly or connected to the field. Thank you for being here with us. We also have Lauren Dinsmore, who was introduced earlier. She is our Best Starts for Kids Senior Evaluator. And I'm excited to also welcome our pilot partners from the Imagine Institute, Amelia Vassar, who's the Senior Director of Equity and Evaluation, and Polly Owen, who is the Senior Director of Programs and a family childcare provider. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to start with our first question to Bhavini and Lois. looking at these survey findings, was there anything, you've been in the field for a long time, was there anything that surprised you, or what were the things that especially resonated with you and why? And
Thank you,
Al,
Kai.
yes.
This is Bhavini Patel. Thanks for the introductions, and I appreciate the opportunity to be part of this discussion. And I am very thankful to the Cardiac Group for this research and survey presentation. The survey has taken a lot of depth information from the childcare workers across the King County. They covered the family childcare, they have covered the centers, they have covered the BIPOC members, they have covered the language. So overall, they have covered a lot of different ethnicity, race, childcare program. So I appreciate that first. What surprised me in here is the home child care providers who has annual income of 75 plus, but most of the cost or expense is the operating cost, right? So the net income was very low. And that net income is not as significant if you have a family. If you're a single person, you can still survive. But with the 16,000 net income, we still have personal expenses going on, which is not being an operating cost because we don't consider personal cost as a business cost, right? So that's one thing that I was kind of curious to know how important the wage is for our industry, the childcare industry. And the other thing that was surprise for me is despite of all the wage, low wage, I would possibly put it in that way, there is still a huge job satisfaction. And I believe that is because we, as an early childhood educator, are passionate to work with the children and bring the community together. We have that passion to be with the children, to make difference in the children's life in early age. So despite of the low wage, there's a great job satisfaction as per the survey results. Thank you. Lois.
Thank you. And first, Kai, I want to thank you for that very, very kind introduction. Appreciate that. So what resonated most deeply for me was the contradiction between how fulfilled early learning professionals feel in their work and how profoundly undervalued they remained in every structural sense. So the report, when I was going through it, shows over 80% of educators feel proud about what they do and feel respected by families, yet have still experienced food or financial insecurity, and nearly a third live within constant financial stress. That disconnect is painful to see when you see it in these numbers, because for so many of us, it's everyday life. Like, we have learned how to steal from Peter and pay Paul, as the saying goes. But yet, even with that, educators show up every day with love, creativity, professionalism. We wear so many different hats, from backyard doctor to front yard maintenance person. We're often skipping our own lunch or breaks, putting off medical care, just doing different things to keep the system running. What also struck me was how BIPOC and multilingual educators were the least able to afford basic needs or participate in spiritual and community life, which especially when I think about my Muslim sisters and brothers, how many times are you missing your prayer time? All those different things like that, right? That reflect our connection to our spirituality. And these are the same women, often mothers, immigrants, our brothers who are cultural anchors who hold this field together. Another surprise for me is how many educators had looked or even considered looking for a new job in just the last 3 months. to me, that spoke volumes about how fragile our workforce has become, especially after the pandemic, and that people are passionate, but passion alone can't offset exhaustion or pay your bills. So for me, the findings just confirm what we've known all along. Early learning is rich in purpose, but poor in protection. And to me, the data just gave us a mirror that kind of shows how you have that joy, like the song Joy and Pain, joy and strain, and how they coexist in this work every day.
Thank you for those insights, Vivini and Lois. Please feel free to join in if there's something additional that you'd like to share. I just want to ground us in that we believe that childcare should be funded as other essential infrastructure within our communities, that the work of childcare should not go at the sacrifice of the workers, and we also know that families cannot pay more. So it is up to us in local government to keep working on solutions to ensure that we have more public investment, which is what our goals are for this pilot. I'm going to ask our two research representatives from King County and from the Imagine Institute, Amelia and Lauren. This survey is highlighting a range of insights about the workforce. You both have experience looking at data and research related to the workforce. What do you think these learnings supplement or enhance of what we already know about the workforce from other surveys and studies?
Sure. I can start, Amelia, if you want. Okay. First of all, it's really, really lovely and enriching to hear from Vivini and Lois on this topic, because we can all see the survey results, but hearing about your experiences and your reflections are deeply important. And I've been saying this since I've seen the survey results. I hope there are no surprises. I hope these really do feel like a reflection of the diversity of experience that you all bring to the workforce. And when Lois, you said it felt like a mirror, like that is music to my ears, because that's how we want these survey findings to feel. We want them to feel reflective of your experience. This is the first survey of this kind for the King County childcare workforce to this large extent. So this really feels like a milestone in being able to share back what we're hearing from the workforce. And again, I don't think there were any surprises, but I think there are things that really stood out to me as highlights that feel reflective of what we're hearing in the field nationally. But there are some unique characteristics of our King County workforce that really stood out. So one, that the compensation and benefits were the biggest drivers of turnover in the field. That really doesn't feel like a surprise to any of us. But we really do have confirmation of that through these survey results. But reasons that people wanted to stay in the field too, those being the relationships that they had with families, the relationships they had to their coworkers, the sense of purpose they feel in the work, and also just how much your workplace conditions inform how much you want to stay in your job too. We also saw that we have a highly skilled workforce. No surprise to any of us. People stay in the field for a really long time. We have a lot of experience, both just years of experience you've been at your facility, but also years of education, years of training that everyone's bringing into the workforce. And all the reasons that people want to stay in the workforce for those things. And then lastly, something that stood out was how unaffordable childcare feels in King County. I don't think that's a surprise to any of us. And seeing that our rates were so much higher than they are nationally. So just seeing the importance of offering free and reduced childcare for our workforce can feel like such an offset of costs that we have here in the county. Yeah, those are all my things for now. I'll pass it over to Amelia.
Thank you, Lauren. And so I want to echo what Lauren was saying. I don't think many of us were terribly surprised by some of the findings that were presented. But I think what it enforces is just how diverse the early learning field is when it comes to who practices. You don't see a monolith when it comes to language or ethnicity or culture or education, history or age. What you don't see a lot of diversity in widely is, of course, gender, and the compensation that early learning professionals obtain, which probably are connected, because it is the majority of women doing the work and the pay is reflective of that. And so you don't see a lot of diversity in pay unless someone manages to reach the director level or they are very, very creative family business owners. I think another thing that was really interesting was learning that the rates of depressive symptoms seem to indicate that, you know, early learning professionals are really operating under tremendous amounts of stress, primarily financial stress. But also, you know, just in, you know, supplemental conversations with people engaged in the wage boost, that stress is often correlated to the lack of recognition that people have for the work that they do, and that they often feel they struggle with feeling valued for their expertise and their education and their experience. It's been really helpful just to follow up with providers in the wage boost to determine some of the short-term effects of a very moderate financial boost, on their experiences of like stress, well-being, workplace dynamics, their professional goals, and other issues. And while it's not terribly surprising what we have learned, I think what it outlines to me is that when people are at least compensated adequately for the work they do, they experience less stress, and they're able to be present in the classrooms with their children and in the families that they serve. And so another finding that I think we're starting to learn is that, you know, we asked people about their ability to stay in the field. And a lot of people indicated that they were able to delay getting a second job or to turn down the need to have a second job because of this wage supplement. So that is some kind of conclusions that we're drawing from just some initial conversations we're having with wage boost pilots. But I'm just really thankful that this research is out there now so that we do have statistics that we can cite when we're making the case of increasing the compensation for childcare providers.
Thank you, Amelia and Lauren. I'm actually going to pose a question again back to Bhavini and Lois. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping around than what I prepared you for. So one of your questions, and it just sprung from some of what Amelia was saying, is that securing additional funding for childcare work is a long-term goal. There are people on this call that are working in a range of positions supporting the childcare field. And so I had another question of what are the other challenges that you see for childcare workers and early learning providers with beyond pay? Are there other things and that can help us to understand some of the survey findings?
I can go for that first. I think, and this is my personal challenge, is healthcare. Besides the pay, you know, we need to make sure that we are taking a self-care. So health insurance is number one priority, comes next to the pay. And the other thing also is we are so much working in this industry trying to find the qualified staff and not taking care for ourselves because we don't have someone to cover for us. That is definitely for me. I can't go and make the doctor's appointment because I don't have anyone coverage. And weekends, they are not available. So trying to find something as a substitute if that works within my schedule and someone else's schedule. With the health insurance, we don't get health insurance if it's not from our own families or we are covered under someone. as per the survey findings, we know that there are so many providers does not have a health benefits. So that is definitely something that I would like to see more. I'm not sure how it's going to work or how it's going to get there, but that is something that I would like to see to support the childcare providers across the state to work on something for health benefits for the for my colleagues, I would say. Lois, your thoughts?
Thank you. Thank you. So beyond pay, I think the greatest challenge is sustainability. Just the ability to keep doing this work without sacrificing our health or our stability or our family life. The presentation showed us that 2 in 5 early learning professionals reported working while sick or injured. Often because there's no one to cover their classroom or they don't have any paid leave left. And that's not just unsustainable, it's unjust. We ask educators to do a lot. We nurture development. We have more classes we have to take, managing behaviors, which has changed a lot since the pandemic. Support parents through their crisis while we may be going through our own. And then meet the complex licensing requirements that seem to continue to grow. When I started this field, the licensing handbook was about like this, and now who knows because it's online. And we're doing all of this while we're carrying the emotional labor of caring for other people's children. Yet the infrastructure around what we do is really thin. It's like being on a pond when ice first forms. Most programs can't afford substitutes. Few offer comprehensive benefits, and mental health support is non-existent. And it's not just a lack of dedication. It's not a lack of dedication on our part. It's that the system relies on personal sacrifice. I remember a senator whose name I won't share had said to me one day that, well, childcare is social service. And I said, it is not social service. We built an essential workforce on being selfless and on people giving and giving and giving until we're burnt out. And as my friend Susan Brown says, early learning is the work that allows all other work. And that line captures everything perfectly. Every profession, every parent, every business depends on what happens in our classrooms. And if we want a strong economy and thriving families, we have to start with the people doing this foundational work. They deserve time, benefits, and respect, and not just a yearly appreciation week. Until educators have room to breathe, we'll keep losing good people who love this work, but simply can't afford to stay in this field.
Thank you, Lois. Absolutely agree. And which is why we intend to continue to learn from this pilot and to hopefully create learnings that are actionable and can be used to move future policy and investment within the workforce. We don't want to stop at the current pilot. We know that we are only impacting less than 10% of the King County workforce, and that every worker across the country deserves to be paid equitable wages. We're going to invite Polly from the Imagine Institute to share one final reflection with us. You work supporting childcare providers across the state of Washington, Imagine Institute does. How can these learnings inform the development of programs and resources for the field? And do you want to share any examples of additional programs or resources that are currently available?
I want to acknowledge it's really hard to follow what Lois just said. I agree with absolutely everything. And just I need a moment with that. Yeah. So I think these learnings, we just need to listen. One of the things that I think is really important during the pandemic, there was a large acknowledgement of the importance of a childcare worker. And I don't believe that that's something that we had ever heard before. I've been in the field for a very long time. And that acknowledgement of what a foundational portion of our society, of our workforce as a whole, a childcare worker was loudly acknowledged. it's gotten really quiet. And I think that that is something that is so critical for any professional, is to be acknowledged as a professional in their space, being provided that acknowledgement, that understanding, professional development that aligns with that is rooted in their experience. I think we need to continue to listen. We need to continue to build with, not for, and really lean into this wonderful opportunity we have to hear from our workforce and what is really impacting them. It is really reaffirming a lot of what we already know, but it's so important to keep hearing it and keep building from within that system.
Thank you so much. Any last thoughts from the panel before we transition?
I just want to piggyback on, what Lois was saying, in interviews that I had with people, there was this huge recognition that like, we don't do this work for the pay. Like we pretty much know that we are not going to be compensated for our expertise, but we're doing it because we have this passion for educating like the next generation of like American leaders. And like Lois said, like early learning professionals, they have to wear so many hats. You have to be educators, but in addition to being educators, you're often a social worker, working on resources for families. You're a therapist. You're working with children as they learn to regulate their emotions and handle new situations and preparing them for kindergarten. In addition to having sometimes really hard conversations with parents about things that you're observing that are really, really tough to talk about. And so in addition to this, childcare professionals are often managing small businesses as entrepreneurs with like razor thin margins. Like these are the most resilient women that I have ever met. I'm really thankful that King County has at least has taken like the first step of like, I know that, King County can't solve the childcare crisis problem for, everybody in King County, but this initial investment, I hope will encourage other local governments to at least attempt to support the early learning workforce until we can get to a statewide solution. So just hats off to King County for their work.
Thank you, Amelia. Thank you, Polly. Thank you, Lauren. And really so much gratitude to you, Bhavini and Lois, for sharing your experiences and the work that you do in our community. My own son's childcare provider is here, Elvia. She took care of both my children when they were younger. And so I know how important childcare providers are and that your voices are represented. We don't have too much time. Justin, I'm going to ask you to put on the final slide. Thank you, Polly. Okay, so where we're headed, I saw in the chat there's some questions about the metrics. We are headed in 2026 to further understand the impact of the pilot. So please continue to stay connected. We'll have more of these sessions where we're going to be sharing out our learnings. We do have a session later in November that is put together through our work group, and it's for childcare providers to come together to continue learning about the pilot. There's going to be a presentation in person. This will be in White Center on Saturday, November 15th. And it's hosted by our work group and our work group facilitators, Uncommon Bridges. This is a free event for childcare workers, and there will be a workshop, and the workshop will provide 2 STARS credits. Additionally, we're bringing on a communications partner to make sure that we can continue to share our learnings and you all can share the learnings as well. Similar to what Lois said, the culture in which we talk about childcare and childcare providers has to change. And that can change through strong messages about the importance of the workforce and the contributions. And so we look forward to sharing more of our materials so that you all can continue to organize, advocate, and educate, and we can all work together to be able to inform a future childcare sector where our providers no longer have to sacrifice, but can actually thrive. So thank you all for joining us here today. We appreciate you, the work that you do, and spending this rainy Thursday with us, and especially gratitude to our research team who are joining us from the East Coast. And I'm sure that you are ready to log off and join your families. Thanks again, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.